I can tell you right now, if you've ever approached a golf shot like this, you're gonna have a much lower chance of success, and that is because when we approach the golf ball where we put the club on the ground first, it's going to be very difficult to get your golf grip correct, and your chance of getting your shots to be very good goes down drastically. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So when we start talking about the grip in the golf swing, this is one of the most important things that you can work on. And honestly, it's one of the most important factors that can get off if you are not paying attention to it. So when we're talking about a grip, we need to have a couple of things that make a really good golf grip. And I think it's important to have a good golf grip for a couple of reasons. One, this is the only part of your body that is touching the golf club. So your connection to the club and how you're gonna feel everything comes through your hands. So we need to get our hands on there properly. All the forces, all the energy that you create is going to go through your hands and out to the golf club. So getting them on there, super important. The other thing is, this is one of the few things that, in my opinion, that everybody, I don't care who you are, you can have a golf grip like a pro. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that pros do in their grips as we go. But this is one of those things, before you hit a golf shot, you can get this correct and make sure you are set up for the best chance at success. Not a guarantee that you're gonna hit your best shot, but it is a much better chance. And if you have a consistent grip, as you're working on things, you kind of can check this off the box that, hey, is my grip correct or not? I always tell people, you want to have a way that you know your grip is correct. If you don't, then you're thinking about it. That doesn't leave room for you to think about something else that you might need to work on. So we want to make sure we get this grip correct. Now, what do bad grips have in common? Well, there's a couple of things. The first one's going to be gripping it in your palms, all right? So when we are gripping the golf club, when I see somebody that's gripping it, we see somebody that'll take their grip and the club runs up and down their palms like this. This is what you see when people grip the club. They place it on the ground, they place the club in the playing position and then put their hands on the club. When you do that, the angle that the club sits and how our arms sit, it makes it very easy for that to happen. In fact, it actually gets really difficult to grip the club properly from this position, because if I put the club down, now I've kind of got to contort things based on how our body is set to be able to get my hands on there correctly. We do not want that. If you have your hands on there and the club is in the palm, what's going to happen is, first, when you go through, you're going to lose control of the club. When the club gets to the top, it's going to start sliding around in your hands. That's not good. If I go to hit a golf ball and I've got it in my palms, I might be able to hit it good, but I'm not going to be able to control where that face is pointing because it's moving around all over the place. Then I have to make up a bunch of different things to correct for my poor grip. That is one of the biggest reasons we want to do this. Now, the second thing is, people cannot generate speed from their golf swing. Right there, I had 76.4 miles an hour of club speed. That's actually not that slow, but I know I can go much more speed on this. I have a 7-iron. Also, you can see how short this went. 125 on my distance, not good. Even, that's a pretty solid strike. It's not great, but it's not the worst strike I've ever had. And that ball is going nowhere as we go through. So we have to get the club out of the palms. And then the other part is, people need to realize how to get their hands on so that they can actually control the face and actually square up the club face. So we'll talk about that second part here in a minute. But let's talk about getting the club into the correct part of the hand. How do we do that? Well, where do we want it? We want it in our fingers. If you were to ever go pick up something heavy, go pick up a dumbbell, go pick up a suitcase, go pick up something that has some weight and it has a handle. I'm never gonna pick that item up by just putting it in my palm, right? I'm never gonna go and like palm it and pick up that device. I'm going to grab it with my fingers. Your fingers have the control. They also have the strength to really secure whatever you're holding. We need that same thing with the golf club. When I swing fast, I don't want the club moving. If I put it in my palm, I can't go fast because I can already feel this club is moving around. I can't have that. So how do we get the club in our fingers? What does that mean? Well, what we're looking for is literally the club is going to run, instead of running up and down our palm like that, we want it in the base of our fingers, just like that, okay? What is the easiest way to do this? Well, I like the Adam Scott technique. I like the Adam Scott technique for this. So what we're gonna do, if you ever watch Adam Scott do his pre-shot routine, he does this before every shot. I also do it. I think it's a great one. What we're gonna do is he actually holds the club out to his side, and he's essentially just reaching it out as far as he can. Reaching out as far as he can, and what that does is that gets the club into your fingers. You can't reach out and have my palm there, or else it gets really, really awkward. If I just stand up, just reach out, now all of a sudden, that club is going to be in my fingers. That is the easiest way to do it. My thumb, all I want is I want my thumb to be pinching together with my pointer finger. I want to pinch it together so there's no gap between my pointer finger, my index finger, and my thumb. I want that pinched together, okay? And I'll show you a good drill here in a few minutes of what we can do for that. If I get those pinched together, club in the fingers, just doing that, we're good to go. If I hold it up, you can see, look at where that club is. It is in my fingers. I can actually take my palm off, and I've got that club gripping really nicely there, okay? Now, what I also need to check now is I need to check with this lead hand. It's really important to have this hand on at the proper orientation. I don't want it turned over too far. I don't want it too weak. I want it somewhere in a fairly neutral position, because that is what's going to allow me to square up the club face. So how do we check what that is? Well, first let's show you how to get kind of a squarish type position. What we're looking for is when I hold this out, get my grip, I'm going to lift the club up in front of me. So I've got this club up here in front. I've got the back of my hand. This is my left hand, so this is my lead hand, or your glove hand, okay? What we have here is, this is flat, okay? This is flat, and what I also have is the club face is flat, okay? If I do that, and again, I've got my thumb and my pointer finger pinched together, and I've got the club on my fingers, if I hold this club in front of me, what you're gonna see is I've got this little V, we call it. It's just essentially the line, the little crease that comes between your thumb and your forefinger. That is going to be pointed somewhere up kind of between my right ear, maybe out to your right shoulder, kind of depends on who you are. Everybody's anatomy is a little bit different, but we need to get into this position where this hand, my lead hand, is pointing towards my trail shoulder, somewhere like that. I don't like to see it, even if you have the club in your fingers. A lot of people will, even when they get in their fingers, they get on here and they turn the grip and it's pointed where the thumb is essentially straight up and down, and this V is pointing at like the left side of their head. That's not gonna work, okay? Because that's gonna tend to wanna leave the face open as you go. So I wanna get where, if I hold it up, this is flat, okay? This is flat. Club face is flat as we do this, okay? Club face is flat. Let's show you this way, all right? So club face is flat here, matching up. Now, if you make a mistake, let's say you're a slicer. Let's say you're a slicer. What can you do? Well, I would want this thing to be just a touch stronger, my grip to be a touch stronger. So what I do is I take the club face, I turn it away from me just slightly. You just loosen your hand, turn the club. Now I put my hand on it. And what that's going to do is now when I hold this grip and this club face straight, this V is definitely pointing at my trail shoulder now. That's about as far as I would probably ever need to go. But what will happen now is as I go through the swing, my hand is going to want to turn back over. If I turn my hand a little bit this way, it's going to want to turn that way as we go through the swing, which essentially is helping square up the club face. It can also give you a little bit more control. It's called a stronger grip because you feel like, hey, I've got a little bit more of a kind of a grip on it. I feel like it's stronger, right? So that's what you can do as you go through there. So that's how you get that lead hand onto the grip. Now, one other thing that you can look at, okay, some people will say, hey, look at the knuckles on your lead hand. How many can you see? I honestly have never liked that because I've always been told I have a strong grip, but then I was also told, oh, you need to see 2 knuckles, 2 knuckles, 3 knuckles, whatever it is. Well, it turns out the way that my hand works, I can see 2 knuckles. So I'm told, hey, that is a strong grip, or that's a normal neutral grip, right? Or whatever it is. But then I actually have pulled the shots a ton, right? I was pulling a bunch of shots, and it turns out my neutral, when I do this, if I'm gonna get more of a neutral grip, what I end up seeing, I only see one. I see one, maybe, barely can see the top of a second one. And that is my neutral grip. It just depends on who you are. So going by knuckle count, I think is a little bit tricky. I like just holding it up. If you get this flat, again, your hand is gonna do what it needs to do. You get this flat, this wrist and your palm and the back of your hand all flat, and then you put the club on, your hand on, and the club face is square. Now you are gripping it square for how your wrist is going to be, right? Because we're going to hit the ball. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of a flat wrist at impact, and we want that, when that happens, we want the club face to be pretty square as we go through, okay? So that is the lead hand, and that is by far the most important hand that you got to get on there, in my opinion. Now the trail hand, if you get the lead hand on there correctly, the trail hand is not so bad. The trail hand, all we're gonna do is we're gonna take this club, we hold it up in front of us, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna swing from underneath. This is important, okay? We're gonna come from underneath as we do this. I don't wanna go over, because what happens is my shoulder goes over. Now all of a sudden, especially if you're like an over-the-top person, if you go over the top with your grip, you're gonna be over the top in your swing. We don't want that. So we wanna go from underneath here. What I'm gonna do is swing up from underneath. I'm going to place my hand on the side of the club, basically with the same idea, right across the base of my fingers, right across the base of my fingers here. And all I'm gonna do is cover my trail thumb. So for me, my right thumb is gonna cover my left. I don't wanna cover it too much, like it completely. I wanna cover with my heel pad here on my thumb pad. I want that basically sitting on top of my left-hand thumb. And I want the same things. I want my thumb and forefinger to be pinched together. And what you'll see is I can fit 3 of my fingers on the grip. My pinky finger on my trail hand should be running out of room. I want my hands to feel like they are together. I don't want them getting too far apart, because now there's going to be too much flipping and torquing of the golf club as we go through, and you'll lose speed. I want to get these hands together, because now my hands are working together as a unit. Now, when that happens, you will see that my pinky finger and my pointer finger are going to be running out of room. What I can do, I can actually do one of 2 things that I prefer. If you really needed to, you can do what's called the baseball grip, where you can just have all your fingers on the grip. I don't like that, because again, you're starting to split your hands up a little bit. For me to get all my fingers on, I gotta split my hand up a little. What you can do is do what's called the overlap, which for a long time was the most popular. You just take your pinky and lay it on top of your pointer finger, and I guess that's your middle finger here. You just lay it right there, or you can just lock together. That's called the interlock. Either one of those work. There's no real advantage to doing either or. It's more of a feel preference thing. The big key is I like to feel like my hands are together. There's actually, I think Jim Furyk is one of the big ones. He actually does a double overlap, where he actually overlaps 2 fingers. You have a little bit of freedom in there, but again, I just think you can do one of those 2 and you're gonna be in good shape as you go. So we run through that. You've got your left hand on, your right hand on now. You're gonna see that part going through. You're gonna put this right hand on, going from underneath, hand goes on, covering the thumb. Now, one other thing that we wanna look at when we're looking at the grip, pointer finger, thumb, make sure they're pointing together on both hands, Now, when we do this, when we are lining up our hands, a good way for you to check to see if your trail hand is on there in a good spot. My pointer finger on my trail hand is actually pointing away from the target a little bit, okay? So if you're looking at my grip, notice how my pointer finger here, we're looking right here, Notice how that's actually pointing a little bit this direction. That means I've got that club on there. I've got it nice and secure. Big mistake that people will do is they get this hand underneath, and then that's gonna wanna square up the club a ton, and then they gotta do some sort of hold on move as they go through. So this is a drill that was shown to me by Tim Mahoney, who was a teacher of mine when I was trying to play professionally many years ago. He would have me take 2 tees and he'd have me pinch them in between my thumb and my forefinger. So keeping them pinched, then he'd have me go through and take my grip, get this on here. And the goal was to have the tees lined up as I was gripping the club. If I did that, it felt very secure and it felt like the club face could stay square throughout the hit. Okay, you can see how much more control I have there. Felt like the same effort swing as my weaker grip at the start. You can see the contact's better, 10 miles an hour more speed, and obviously a much better shot that we could work with. So getting these tees in here and feeling like they are lined up together, that is a great way to kind of see if your hands are working together. Or, you know, sometimes you'll see people do this. Hey, I can see both of my tees are way off on the side of the grip, or you'll see this commonly where they are both pointing opposite directions. That's not good. If you go through this, hey, we're gonna get them all lined up. All of a sudden, here we go. We are in a good spot. So that is a great little drill that you can do as you go through this, okay? So the grip. It's just so important. You have to be able to get this right. And again, we worry so much about like what pros do and all these things that they do, but they get this part right all the time. And amateurs don't get this one right a lot. They're going on to level 20 when they're still on level 1, and we want to make sure we get level 1 first, because then it makes level 2 easier, level 3 easier, level 4, and you can progress through the levels faster. You can't do the certain things in your golf swing if your grip is not in a good spot. And like I said, this is one of those things, it doesn't matter who you are, you can get a world-class grip on the golf club. So take yourself through this routine, try it out and see how it works for you. But having a routine to get your grip and know that is correct, that is the biggest thing that I want to see from people and what I want to see people doing. I have people do it in my lessons. It's painful for me sometimes because I got to stop people. It slows things down a little bit, but I know how important it is that, hey, you got to get your hands on there because it's going to make you swing it better. So we have to be vigilant in doing it, all right? So if you have questions about it, leave that comment down below. And as always, click that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber already, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.